That's my synagogue, Young Israel of Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale. We have lots of members, people of all ages, and a full schedule of activities in any given week. We have a few rabbis, and they're the greatest. Sometimes we even have rabbis who visit for the weekend as scholars and residents. But then along came this virus, and with it, self-isolation, quarantine, and for some reason, a major toilet paper shortage. But I digress. So we tried to move all of our classes and activities online, and people seemed to like it. But I was thinking, what if we got some of our rabbis together, perhaps even the occasional guest, once a week, just to shoot the breeze and maybe joke around a little? I'm Avi Fryer, and this is Rabbis in Quarantine Getting Coffee. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Rabbis in Quarantine Getting Coffee. This is episode 8. I can't believe we've actually done it this long. I can't believe we've actually had rabbis in quarantine for this long. You usually cannot keep a good rabbi down, and right here we have 3 good rabbis that it will be hard to keep down. We have with us tonight, all the way from Dallas, Texas, Rabbi Ariel Rakovsky of Sharei Tefillah in Dallas. And a little bit closer, we have Rabbi Donald Bixson from Miami Beach, Florida, Beth Israel in Miami Beach. And right here at home, Rabbi Yosef Weinstock, Young Israel of Hollywood, Fort Lauderdale. It's a pleasure to have the 4 of you on. Welcome to the show. Now, I only just met Rabbi Rakovsky today for the first time virtually, but I have known Rabbi Bixson. I've known Rabbi Bixson a long time. In fact, I've known Rabbi Bixson so long that I don't even remember how I know Rabbi Bixson. See, because what happens is every time we get to talking about how I know him, I'll bring up the wrong reference, which I did once again today. And Rabbi Bixson, he said it was wrong. I insist that it was a New Jersey NCSY, some kind of something that happened between New Jersey NCSY and Atlantic Seaboard NCSY, and Mark Penner was there, who is no longer known as Mark Penner. He's known as, I believe, Rabbi Menachem Penner. Is that correct?
We just call him the Rosh Hashiva.
The Rosh Hashiva.
The artist formerly known as Mark Penner.
Actually, I call him the person that got me through Smicha because he was my Yeridea Chavrusa. So to be honest with you, I have a tremendous amount of Karas Hatov to the Rosh Hashiva, Rabbi Penner, because without him, I probably wouldn't be sitting here today.
It's funny you said, as you were saying, he got you through Smicha. I just envisioned everybody taking the test in the same room and Rabbi Bixson going, okay.
Pretty much.
That's what it's like to be that's what you meant. Oh, he was my Yoredea Chavrusa. I understand. Okay, I didn't see the fingers. So, okay, so that's not correct?
That's not correct. It was correct that you, first of all, I don't ever remember anything between New Jersey NCSY and Atlantic Seaboard. That was like not our thing. Possibly at a national convention, that's where, but you worked for NCSY, but I was not in an NCSY capacity when we met. We did not meet in New Jersey. We met in Indianapolis.
Oh, the what's that foundation?
Right. So the Lilly Foundation was giving money to YU and other seminaries, meaning not just Jewish seminaries, to see what it was like. You ready for this? To see what it was like to be a rabbi out of town or to be a clergy person out of town. Mm-hmm. So they were giving YU and the seminary and Christian seminaries money to send their clergy students, their theology students, outside to out of town places to go see what it was like to be out of town. So the choice was, I think, Kansas City, Indianapolis. Ready for this? Boca Raton.
Yes.
Everyone jumped on that one, even though Boca Raton wasn't Boca Raton yet. But just to go to Florida during the winter was the chap. So myself, Rabbi David Kupchik, and Rabbi Aaron Goldscheider went to Indianapolis. So coincidentally, it was the Shabbos after Pesach. The Rebbitzin was mortified because she had nothing in Indianapolis. Like, it's not like they can restock automatically. So she had like nothing in the house. You know, they had just finished Pesach. We went to Shabbos after Pesach, and coincidentally, that same Shabbos, okay, was some kind of NCSY Shabbaton. And Avi Fryer immediately endeared himself to me personally.
No.
I don't know, Rabbi Weinstock, I'm sure, Avi, you probably only see him in like a button-down shirt and a suit on Shabbos. But back in the day,
Yes.
Avi Fryer was wearing these wacky clothing over Shabbos, these really weird ties.
I don't know what you're talking
weird
about.
shirts. Right, you'd have no idea what that's like. And if you were in Camp Missouri, you wouldn't know what that's like either. So the Saturday night, they had like some kind of like going to like an arcade. So for you younger rabbis, it used to be a thing. We didn't have these consoles that we plugged into our TV. The only way we could play video games was going to an arcade where we put quarters in a machine. So they give out tokens.
Shani, back when I was your age.
Right, yeah, exactly. So we went to an arcade. So we, the rabbis, like had nothing else to do Saturday night in Indianapolis. So we went to the arcade with them, and Avi Fryer came over with like 3 buckets of tokens, and all the kids are grabbing. He goes, no, the rabbis first. So I must have played Pac-Man until literally Hagir Zman Kriya Shema. And then, Avi, we met years later when I moved to Florida. It was your first stint at the Hebrew Academy. That's when we met up again.
Okay, so
the relationship solidified at Camp Mesorah, the greatest camp.
That I do remember the Hebrew Academy thing, but I have zero recollection of the whole. But however, you know what?
It was the tokens, Avi. It wasn't the loud ties. It wasn't the weird shirts. You gave me tokens, and I played all night long.
Here's what's funny. I mean, okay, this is a whole fancy Hollywood. You know, let me give you our viewers a glimpse of what's really going on here. People, I'm in my bedroom with a green screen, okay, and right over here. Right over here, I have the shirts that I wear to this day.
That was the shirt. That was the same shirt 25 years ago.
Familiar, Rabbi. Okay, so, now I need to get rid of this as quickly as possible. Only a few viewers should be able to see that. Okay, now Rabbis Weinstock and Rakovsky, I think, have a maybe, hopefully, more memorable for both of you. I'm very happy that I was able to endear myself to Rabbi Bixen early on, because much later at Camp Mesorah, I upset him a few times. So what's your background? How do you know each other?
Rabbi Weinstock, you're the home show.
I saw you bet last. I hear you, visiting team. But Rabbi Rakovsky and I went to yeshiva together in Israel at Keren B'Yavneh, KBY. And, you meet people throughout your lifetime, and then you get back together with them years later. And sometimes you're like, really? That's what he ended up as? And sometimes you're like, yeah, that's what he ended up as. And like, in the case of Rabbi Rakovsky, I knew that he went for smicha. We were there. We overlapped in smicha together as well. But even from our time together in Israel and yeshiva, it makes sense that he's a rabbi in Dallas. I happen to know the show a little bit because my grandparents lived in Dallas way back when, but it's a much larger community than what I remember it as. But Rabbi Rakovsky, I can tell you that I'm not surprised he became a rabbi, unlike some of our other colleagues whom shall remain nameless, but you can think of them when you're thinking of them. And so it's not so surprising. We had some good times. We had some good times in Israel at KBY.
We did.
Are there people out there who are surprised that any of you became rabbis? Like, you must each have someone who's like, no.
Well, Mark Penner for one. That would be.
Well, he was your chavrusa.
he was our chavrusa. I think every day went, this is just not going to be good.
Anyone else?
My wife.
Yeah. Okay.
I hear that.
Wait.
I like those
I was a rabbi
because
when she met me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think she's still surprised sometimes.
So every once in a while, she looks at you and says, "How did you become a rabbi?" You get that?
Yeah.
Because
I find that refreshing because my predecessor is married to a woman who was the Rebbitzin before she married the rabbi, as we all know, Meira Davis. So it's sometimes refreshing when rabbis have spouses who are like,
When you say
do
it
you-
like that, it doesn't really necessarily tell the story. I mean, some people listening might be like, "Oh, so she was married before?" No, Rabbi Davis says, the reason I was able to become a rabbi is that I married a Rebbitzin.
That's right.
I married a Rebbitzin.
That's right.
But Rabbi Rakovsky, you married a doctor.
I did.
So she's a Rebbitzin, or you're a doctortzin, or does she call herself Rebbitzin?
She asked to be called Jessica. That does happen to be her name also.
And I was going to say, it's not even her name.
Rebecca likes it. My wife Rebecca likes to go by Jessica also.
I happen to know that Eliza Bixen does not like to be called Rebbitzin, or I've never called her Jessica, but she's not a Rebbitzin, right? Is that
What?
She does not like to be called Rebbitzin. When people call her Rebbitzin, she thinks of her grandmother. So my wife is from a long line of rabbinic stock, and a prestigious rabbinic stock, and she vowed never, ever, ever to marry a rabbi, especially a pulpit rabbi. So people ask her what happened. She said, "I fell in love with one. It was an accident." That was she doesn't like to call Rebbitzin because she thinks of her grandmother, Rebbitzin Raymond, alav shalom, or her great aunt, who she was very, very close to, Rebbitzin Tights, alav shalom. So Rebbitzin in her mind means old ladies that were very, very prestigious and well-liked ladies, but nevertheless old ladies. She also, by the way, Avi doesn't like an ice cream named after her either, as we found out.
Yes, and I won't go into detail of what ice cream you may be referring to. What happens at camp stays at camp. But I just, with all as much respect as I'm able to muster, I want to just confirm that Rebbitzin Raymond and Rebbitzin Tights, not once did they teach Pilates. That's correct?
No, actually, no, neither of them taught Pilates.
Neither of them taught Pilates. Okay, so I mean, I am sitting here with not only three one-of-a-kind rabbis, but they are definitely married to one-of-a-kind Rebbitzins, or whatever we would call them.
Let's just call them Jessicas.
Jessicas, three Jessicas. This is a new word because I've heard my kids taught me that there's something called a Karen, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Karen. So now we have a new one, a Jessica. So, and it means a non-Rebbitzinical Rebbitzin. So
Non-traditional Rebbitzin.
A non-traditional Rebbitzin. But what's very cool, I think, is that we have people from very different communities sitting among us. We have Rabbi Weinstock and I both here from Hollywood, and Rabbi Bixen from Miami Beach, both in South Florida, but the communities are very different. But also in regard to how people are approaching everything that's going on, not just what's going on with the coronavirus and the whole rabbis in quarantine, how this all began, but what's going on in the news right now. Rabbi Bixen warned me that we have to be done before 10 o'clock because they're under.
So it's now 9 o'clock. I'm officially violating curfew.
You're violating curfew.
Also, I'll send you the footage of all the armored police vehicles that have now amassed. No one can get into Miami Beach. It's in complete lockdown.
Wow.
Beautiful. Listen, if you need help getting home tonight, I guess I can't help you because there's a whole lockdown and all those armored vehicles.
Right.
We have Hollywood. Our show is going to be starting the opening process tomorrow. We're going to have our first minyanim outdoors. Rabbi Bixen is going to be starting the following day on Tuesday. Rabbi Rakovsky has had a little bit going already. So we've started a bunch of these shows with the question of Jews and social distancing. We all know that social distancing is really hard for Jews. It's probably really hard for everyone, but it's super hard for Jews. I've made the joke a few times already, but Liz Browser keeps laughing at it. So I'll say again, Jews say, "Oh, do you hold 6 feet? I hold into the 6th foot. I hold 3 feet." So that's, everybody has their own idea of social distancing. What's it been like in your communities? What have the past few months been like for you?
Well, I think people over time, initially people were really strict about it. I think even people that weren't necessarily, they didn't buy it so much. They kept to it. But now I think people are starting to people are starting to, it's getting old for people. So the barriers have come down a little bit. There was one local family that actually many of their kids came in immediately once the lockdowns began, and they have, thank God, many, many kids. So over Pesach, they were all together, and someone called the police on them for a code violation because there were 25 people in the house, but everybody had been strictly quarantining the entire time, and it was all part of one family. When the officer came, it said the mother said, "We're all together, we're all the same family." So, well, God bless you. So for the most part, people have, I think, started to show a little bit more. People have become a little bit more relaxed. We're seeing people sitting on their front lawns, not exactly 6 feet apart from one another, and that kind of thing, showing that they're not exactly quite as into it as maybe they used to be.
So it sounds a lot like Hollywood. How about Miami Beach, Rabbi?
Miami Beach was it was interesting. When I was the first shul to shut down, so they created like a WhatsApp chat. Beth Israel, there was a community WhatsApp chat. So it was people in the WhatsApp chat, where someone in the WhatsApp chat said, "Well, it's a modern thing." So I guess it was modern to save lives. So then finally, I think when other non-YU personalities with, I guess, bigger or thicker beards, came out and also were asking for the shutdown. So it wasn't such a modern thing anymore. I think people, again, look, we live in the shadow, even though we are maybe at best children or grandchildren, I should say, of survivors. We still live in the very recent memory of people being told, you can't make a minyan, you can't be observant, you can't be religious. So I think that haunts people even 2 generations later. So when people hear, I can't, part of the natural Jew, unfortunately or unfortunately, the natural response of a Jew is, I'm gonna do whatever I want. And then there's also the fact that, people are naturally suspicious when they're told they can't. What does that mean that I can't? So I think that people try to push themselves to can. And look, in this particular case, I think the reason you can't was in order to save lives, in order, to thank God, Baruch Hashem, Bli Ayin Hara, I only lost one person from my congregation to COVID. And, I'm hoping the fact that we shut down when we did created the fact that there weren't others, and that, equally important, that we allowed the hospitals to function at full capacity, because I have other congregants, non-COVID related, who had medical emergencies. And, thank God they were able to be seen in a prompt and, really steadfast manner. I heard, I don't know if it's true, that in other areas, such as in New York, that unfortunately non-COVID people oftentimes were not given the treatment that they needed, not because the doctors and nurses weren't caring, but just because they were overwhelmed.
So we behaved. We pretty much behaved. We behaved better than a lot of what I heard up there. Now there's a lot of misbehaving going on, and that's why Rabbi Bixen is violating a curfew right now. But we got through. We've done 2/3 of the Shalosh Regalim. We've had Pesach and Shavuot under quarantine. Nobody went to shul in any of the 3 congregations represented here. Nobody went to shul for Pesach or Shavuot. We'll get to Shavuot, but tell what happened. And I didn't ask you this when we spoke earlier. I'm catching you off guard. What didn't you miss about Pesach, the old way, the normal way, and what did you miss? And like, what was it like just suddenly doing Pesach with only the immediate members of your family that were in your house? And I'm sure for the 25 people that were in that one house in Dallas, it was just like Pesach. But for the rest of us, what was it like? And Rabbi Weinstock, I know you've answered this question before, and if you want to jump in first and give Rabbi Bixen and Rakowski a chance to think about it.
Sure. Well, I mentioned the fact that, it gave us a chance to be realistic about, those like idealized memories about like Seder. Like when you look back on them, you're always like, oh, everything's so wonderful, everyone together, everyone loves each other. And then when you have a year off, you're like, well, I kind of didn't miss, Uncle Jack. I don't have an Uncle Jack, but Uncle Jack, who like interrupts every 5 seconds and wants to know what we're going to eat. He's endearing in my memory, and in real life, when he's not there, I don't miss it. So that's one of the things that I remember from the experience of not having some of the regular challenges and tensions and busyness that goes into a regular Seder experience.
Here we go.
It was very different, but it wasn't horrible, I gotta say.
Here we go. Uncle Jack's going to say something racist again.
Not these days.
Didn't happen this year.
That's right.
What about you, rabbis from far away?
So I really miss the fact we usually keep our Sidarim relatively nuclear. This year was supposed to be, my son just got married at the end of August, so it was supposed to be my parents, my machatanim, my new daughter-in-law, my son and daughter-in-law who haven't seen. So it's actually going to be a much bigger Seder than we've ever had before. So I kind of missed that opportunity. I certainly miss being with my parents. I miss being with our very dear friends, Joel and Shayna Kruger, who are always, at our Sidarim. So that was hard. But I have to be honest with you, at the end of the first Seder, my kids turned to me and they said, Abba, this was the best Seder that we've ever had. And I think it was because I was present. I wasn't thinking about the fact that I, needed to finish a drasha or a shir, or, that I've got to run things a little quicker because I got to get up early in the morning. I'm an old man. I can't stay up so late. So, so I think that the fact that I noticed that over Shabbos and Yom Tov in my own quarantine, or what I call it, my own exile, that I've been more present when I've been home.
And Rabbi Rakovsky, and then I have to start responding to some comments because I just got a winner.
Humdinger.
I'm glad I looked at my phone because this one came by text. But Rabbi Rakovsky, you first.
We were supposed to have my parent. We always have our parents for different ends of Yontif, and unfortunately, none of them were able to come. And we also have a number of people who are regulars at our Seder table. First Seder is always family with us, but second Seder is become people who are like family, and we missed them this year as well. Our Sidarim ended because my kids are young. So it was very much geared toward the, between 7.5 to 4-year-olds. My youngest is 2. She wasn't up. But so the Seder kind of ended when they ended. So we ended at 11:30. It never ended a Seder so early in my life. I certainly missed perhaps a little bit more of an adult level of discourse, but that's not who the Seder is for. The Seder was exactly intent for who it was intended, and it served its purpose. And I think that they had a really memorable Seder.
I'm just making a little note to self. If ever in Dallas, steer clear of Rakovsky's Seder. It goes all night. Okay, so we were talking before about the title of Rebbitzin. And
didn't this get you in trouble already once before?
It did, but I'm going to do this anyway.
Back to Uncle Jack. I really want to hear about Uncle Jack in the comments.
I don't. No, not tonight. Not tonight.
I don't have an Uncle Jack either.
Now I'm going to be on lockdown all night long. I'm sitting in my office.
I don't have an Uncle Jack either. But here's the thing. Rabbi Rakovsky, before this little talk we're having here, I did not know your wife's name. I just want to point that out.
Right.
However, a couple weeks ago on the show, we were talking about the title of Rebbitzin, and I happened to share a story, with permission of the people involved, happened to share a story of a person in our community here in Hollywood who got smicha. It was not his main thing. He was a city commissioner, and he's an attorney. He just a regular guy, and he got smicha. And I once referred to his wife as Rebbitzin, and she got very upset by this. She said to me, "No, I'm not a Rebbitzin." She couldn't wrap her head around the idea that you would be awarded a title just based on what your husband does. And and she wanted to be her own person. So I would jokingly, because her husband was a city commissioner after that, I would call her Commissioner Tsin every once in a while. Well, as luck would have it, her name is Jessica.
Yes.
And so I just got a text from her. So now my name is symbolic of a non-Rebbitzin. And so Jessica, we're thinking of you, even though at the time we weren't exactly thinking of you. And Rabbi Bixen, Joel Kruger he posted in the comments on YouTube. He seemed very pleased that he got a shout out. But I just want to point out, Joel, Rabbi Bixen did say that you were my friend and not his friend. So it might not have been such a high up shout
But
out.
I said my friend.
You said your friend.
Also, my dear friends. I realized after I said it that you know them also. But no, I said my friend.
Okay. So I take it back.
Did you hear?
Now, by the way, not only is he my friend, he's the guy that's going to be escorting me home tonight because I'm going to need a armed escort.
Nice.
Avi, are there any comments from Rabbi Bixen's other friends as to why they never get an invite to the Seder?
I haven't
have
seen
no
them
other
yet,
friends.
but
there's no other comment. I have no other friends. That's it. That's the extent.
no. Now that you've brought it up, I'm sure that you will. Gary Bomser says he loves to see Rav Bixen in action. He did.
By the way, Gary Bonser actually was invited to my Seder many, many years ago, and he dumped me.
And he turned them down, and he'll never get an invite again.
He turned me down. That's how I know.
His
He turned
loss.
me down.
All right, Gary.
Gary Bonser is the number one guy.
You're off the
Number one
list.
guy, other than Elijah the prophet, he's the number one guy I'd want on my Seder.
There you go.
All right,
Yeah,
so
we take it.
so now we come to Shavuot, completely different from Pesach, because I mean, some say if you're doing it right, it is going all night. It's not ending at 11:30, and so Shavuot was definitely very different for all of us. I know I went to bed around 11:30 myself. There was some learning going on my front porch, and there was a bonfire. I've never had a Shavuot bonfire before.
Bonfire.
A bonfire, a fryer fire. There was a fire. There was a controlled burn. And
Wait, was there a midnight barbecue? We had talked about that earlier. Was there a midnight barbecue?
We did not do a midnight barbecue.
That's not-
What was how about Shavuot? What was the all night learning like?
So I would just say I learned with my son, my 11-year-old. We learned Pirkei Avot, and it took a long time. It took about 3.5, 4 hours. We started around 11, and after an hour and a half, I was standing at the stove because if I sat down, I would have fallen asleep. And he was reading in the Hebrew, and I was translating. And in between prakim, I would close my eyes for a minute, and then at 3:30, I was done. And I'm like, all right, where the people to schmooze with? Where's my office to rest in? Where's like the coffee and donuts? Like, it was just like either you're learning or like you're sleeping. So like I learned more than I probably ever do on a Shavuos night, but I was done earlier than I could possibly daven in the morning. So I went to bed and woke up the next morning.
But you also got to pick what you learned. You didn't have to worry about learning based on what the whole kahila would want to learn. You got to be just Yosef Weinstein.
And my audience for my 3:30 shir was similar as it is in shul. There was one person listening to me at home, and there's usually one person listening to me at shul. So it's about the same. I kind of spread Torah equally, home and
All
at shul.
right. And Rabbi Rakovsky, you had something to say about that earlier.
Yeah, so for a number of years during my assistant rabbi days, it was my job I gave 1 or 2 shiurim at the beginning of Tikkun Leil Shavuos, and then I would go home and sleep and then cover the main minyan, the 9 o'clock minyan. After I got married, so my wife was in residency, and she decided that if she was pulling all-nighters at her job, she should also do the same for Torah. So she would stay up, and I'd go home, and then I'd go back to shul. So this was the first year since then that I haven't stayed up all night. In fact, I went to sleep probably at about 12:30. My kids are young and had to be up for them. Wouldn't have been fair for me to conk out like that all day. So that's what I did. I learned a little bit. My son, wanted to stay up, so I learned with him just a bit. Learned myself, and then was out like a light. It was glorious. I shouldn't say that. It was it was different. It was different.
And I guess the question should have been, so Rabbi Bixen, how much sleep did you get on Shavuot?
Right. Normally, you're like the Siddharim are all like, well, mine ended at 12, and you said at 12:30. I really meant 1. So now we're all like competing who went to bed earlier.
Oh yeah.
So the Shuas was very sad. I did a Wednesday night shiur on Zoom I'm sure everyone did the same thing, and I did a Yizkor and so on and so forth. But I'm not, especially as I've grown older. Shuas night, I actually pick a topic that I'm interested in and I research it, and sometimes it takes me, it could be like years that I've been like percolating different things. So I really look forward to Shuas night. I never stay up all night. I'm not a big fan of the all night program. I find that it's, for whatever reason. So I just missed it this year because that really is what pushes me to really learn and to teach. And so I usually give about an hour to an hour and a half shiur Shuas night, and then I, catch like 10 minutes of the hack. I learn myself, and then I go to sleep, and then I come back to the main minyan. So I actually didn't go to bed as early as I thought. We did like a learning session with my house. My daughter gave a shiur, and then we had like group discussion on different Torah topics. But I found myself, my kids were pushing me to stay up, and I was, pushing myself as much as possible. So then I sat down to learn myself, and once I sat down to learn myself, then that was pretty much it.
I'm learning on the couch.
I tried that 1 minute in between parak, but that 1 minute in between parak sort of became 10 to 20 to 30 minutes, and then that's when I went to bed.
It's all over, man. Learning on the couch after the Seder. Yeah, that's going well.
I'm resting my eyes.
Resting my eyes. Avi, I wanted to ask my colleague something. I wanted to ask them something. Because I find that now that we are virtual, so for some reason it seems like my congregants are keeping up on what every other shul in the world is doing.
Yes.
In some ways more so than what they know is going on in their own shul. So I often hear, oh, did you know that Dallas is doing X and Miami Beach is doing Y? I'm like, yeah, I actually do know that. That's kind of my job to keep up on things. Do you know what we're doing at the Young Israel of Hollywood? So I was wondering if you have that experience also, a little envy of what else everyone else is doing without paying attention to what's going on in your own backyard.
If you don't mind, before you answer, I want to ask the question a slightly different way.
Yeah.
Rabbi Bixen and Rabbi Rakowski, what have you heard that we're doing in Hollywood?
I've heard it's amazing. My congregants come to me all the time, and they're like, "Why can't we be more like Hollywood?"
I didn't do it for the. I wasn't fishing for a compliment.
Oh, okay.
No,
That wasn't the point.
This was the year of the rabbis renting ice cream trucks.
Yes,
that's right.
Or sending. I don't know if you picked this up from Shavuos Shalach Manas packages.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we did some of that. Like the point is, like we did some of that, but we didn't do all of it. So God forbid you recognize what we do, engage in. But did you hear about X and Y? Yeah.
Well, I know one thing Rabbi Bixen did.
There's one guy who just kept sending me Rav Schechter's Chuvos as if I was in the dark. So that part, I finally had to say that I'm on it. I know, I'm aware.
Places are reopening? I had no idea. They're social distancing? I wouldn't have known if you didn't send it to me.
Well, a couple weeks ago, we had a show, one of our more controversial shows. We had Rabbi Weinstock, and then we had Rabbi Wattstein, who's conservative, and Rabbi Needleman, who is reform, and the three of them on. And one of the things we talked about, the difference between between Orthodox shul and a Reform shul is that in a Reform shul, everybody in the room pretty much agrees that the rabbi is the smartest guy in the room, that he knows the most about Judaism, and in an Orthodox shul, everybody pretty much says they know better than the rabbi does. So I guess you would all get to experience that. But what I was going to say is I do know one of the things that Rabbi Bixen did, because Gary Bomzer is.
Wait, can I just one question? Wait, Avi. When they had that controversial show, did you ask them what their wives' names are? Because I'm just curious. Was there a Jessica?
We did.
We talked about it. There were no Jessicas involved, but there also weren't a lot of Rebbitsons. But But Gary Bomser, who is still active in the chat here, says that Rav Bixen. Does everybody call you Rav Bixen, or is that just a Gary Bomser thing?
No, he just started calling that tonight. He's just doing that, because he wants to.
You should hear what he normally calls him. No.
He just calls me. No. He always calls me right. No. He's always right. Yeah, listen, he's the son of a rabbi. He is like, Gary Bomser with that. Rabbi Bomser once said, Rabbi Bomser once turned to him when I was standing there, and he gave a vart, and the vart was, you never raise your hand against Moshe Rabbeinu. So I won't go into the whole vart. So he turned to Gedalia Yonah, his son, and he says, Gedalia Yonah, you don't ever raise your hand to the rabbi. So that was it. That was the rule. Rabbi Bomser Zachron laid down the rule. You give respect to the rabbi. So Rav, that's a new thing. But rabbi is, I'm good with rabbi.
So he says that you shared materials to learn that were fantastic and thoughtful. He had the opportunity to learn with his wife, and he used the materials Rav Bixen, shared with our Beth Israel congregation to use. Outstanding. I don't know if you have a PR director, and I don't know if Gary Bomser is looking for a job.
Right.
But
it's, I was fishing for the compliment, and then here Rabbi Bixen gets all the compliments. It's ridiculous.
No, but here's the joke: is I stole it all from the Young Israel of Hollywood.
There you go. So yes, a lot of us did give out ice cream. And I know I'm in a WhatsApp group with people who do programming and other shows. I have one of youth and one of adult programming, and everybody was talking about giving out ice cream on Erev Yom Tov.
We did a little differently. We gave it out. Our youth director went around, he and his wife, to all the kids' houses and gave it on the first day of Yom Tov.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
On Yom Tov. Is this Yoel you're talking about?
It's a nice touch. Yeah.
He's in the WhatsApp group. Now I remember he talked about that. And he's listening, by the way.
My youth director made it educational, and he made what's called Jar Sinai. So all the kids will have a Jar Sinai, which is a candy Har Sinai. So that was my youth director happens to be brilliant, not just having fun activities, but incredibly educational. So I give him all the credit for that.
And we made people come to Shul and get their own darn ice cream. We were like, yeah, drive on through. We're doing a drive-through.
It was nice. We had a big sign that said, "We miss you." It was great.
It was nice. Yes. And the rabbis were out there, and I was out there, and the president was out there giving out ice cream. It was nice. It was a lot of fun. It was great. So that was Shavuot, and now we're going into the summer. Next week is actually going to be our Schools Out episode of Rabbis in Quarantine. We're going to have a couple of rabbis from the various local day schools that our Hollywood kids attend. And so we're starting to think about what this summer is going to be like. And I know that for some of us, it's still up in the air. I know for me, it's up in the air. And for some of us, it's going to be different than it's been in a long time. What are you looking at for the summer, rabbis?
My mother-in-law keeps buying us inflatable toys for the pool, and I'm finally getting my money's worth out of my pool guy that's been cleaning my pool for years. Where that's half the day is that's basically summer camp is our backyard pool. It's that's other than that, I have no plans.
No plans.
I'm waiting to see what happens if the sleepaway camps are really going to function. If hopefully they will function, because I really think the kids need it, and they need I feel bad for everyone, but I feel bad that kids that this is just an opportunity lost if they can't go to sleepaway camp. So but if not, then I gotta try to work with my youth director to kind of create some kind of organized programming for them over the summer, because this is going to be intense, especially now it's been nice weather. So kids go out, they walk, they ride their bikes. But as we well know, in South Florida, it's going to start getting rainy and humid and even buggier. And that's going to be, I think people are going to start to, I think people are already getting that. So that's going to become an issue.
And
I'm slightly concerned.
You got some humidity of your own in Dallas, don't you? It's a dry heat. But yeah, it's just oppressively hot in the summer. We're talking, in the hundreds, triple digits, easy, straight through July, August, into parts of September. So not necessarily the most pleasant time to be here. In a normal year, the joke is that the way to survive Dallas in August is to leave Dallas in August. And many people go to Colorado. I don't think that I don't know if that'll be happening this year, but we'll see. At the moment, no plans on this in particular.
Are the trips to Colorado relatively recent with the various legalizations that went on there over the past few years, or is it just all about the weather?
It's about the Rocky Mountain High.
Exactly. I don't know that is I don't want to impugn any of my congregants, God forbid. But for other people, that might not have been a deterrent per se.
Not a deterrent. So we're heading into the summer. I know that I like Rabbi Rakovsky. You come from Rochester, New York, so you're really used to the cold. This probably was a little bit of a shock for you.
Yeah, I have said many times that I not only am I used to the cold, I actually love the cold weather and the snow, and it's one of the things that I miss. And I don't, as much as I love the people here and I love the community, I don't think that I will ever get used to the heat in the summertime or get over missing.
But it's a dry heat. It's a dry heat.
It's a dry heat. Winter in Dallas. It has snowed.
So is an oven. You're not getting in that.
It has. People say. I was told that before I moved here, say that winter in Dallas is not a season; it's an event.
Right.
Oh,
right.
Kind of like South Florida.
Yeah.
Like it will.
When I moved to Miami Beach, when I moved to Miami Beach, one of the rabbis took me out and they said Florida has 3 degrees: Haze, Hazer, and Geferlach. And that's pretty much hot, hotter, and terrible. Like that's pretty much the way it is.
Yeah.
You know, I think we get a bad rap. The truth is, Rabbi Rakovsky mentioned temperatures in the hundreds. It doesn't get in the hundreds here. I mean, it might feel like it because of the humidity, but it doesn't. It definitely doesn't get into the hundreds.
Right.
So, Rabbi Rakovsky's video is kind of coming and going here, and it is. Wow, look at that! It's past curfew, Rabbi. It is past curfew.
No.
Yes, despite that virtual background, Rabbi Bixson is coming to us live from his office at Beth Israel, which will be starting to open the day after tomorrow. And hopefully, let me just see. We lost Rabbi Rakovsky, but I'll keep an eye and see if he comes back in. Rabbi Weinstock is safe at home. I'm safe at home. Rabbi Bixson, we hope you stay safe. Any final closing thoughts? Anything I forgot to ask or that you'd like to bring up? Anyone?
Well, I was just going to say it was such a pleasure. I've had many opportunities to work with Rabbi Bixson over my years here in South Florida and to reconnect with Rabbi Rakovsky. We always get together, Rabbi Bixson as well, and Rabbi Rakovsky at conferences and other events, whether locally through Yeshiva University or through APAC or other national organizations that we're all a part of. So it's wonderful to connect with colleagues, both near and far, those that I've only known during my time here and those that I've known even further back. It's really a lot of fun and very satisfying.
That was so nice.
There's a lot of fun, and Avi, you're amazing as usual.
Thank you, Rabbi. That's really the compliment I was fishing for the whole time. You could have said that earlier. We could have ended the show right there. So Rabbi Rakovsky is messaging me. Technical issues. We lost him. He wants the link again. So it's I'll just send that real quick. We might be gone by the time he gets on. But thank you both. Thank you all three for joining us. And I want to just see if I missed any questions in the chat. I know that Donnie Davis wanted to make a point to point out, Rabbi Rakovsky is back. Donnie Davis wanted to make a point to point out that he's known me much longer than my Indianapolis days because we grew up together in Richmond, Virginia, back in the old days when Rabbi Davis was my rabbi there. Yes, it's true. Donnie, thank you for listening. And I see a few people that are just joining us. we're getting ready to wrap it up. If you missed the show, it will be on our YouTube channel. I assume you can also rewatch it on Facebook Live. This whole thing tonight was a little bit of an experiment, being on Facebook Live and YouTube Live at the same time. Would like to hear from you how that worked out, how the connection was, if it sounded good, if we should keep doing that. Rabbi Rakovsky, do you have any final thoughts to take us home? Anything that we didn't talk about that you were thinking about?
Well, first of all, my apologies for the very minor technical glitch on my end, and I'm sure that the part that I wasn't there for was the best part.
Oh, we were talking about you the whole time.
I'm sure, as well you should. Let me think. So first of all, a lot of amazing people that I know in Hollywood, and also some really amazing people that we stole from Hollywood. Tell
the Davises I say hi.
That's
right.
Right.
You got a great chazan from Hollywood, didn't you?
Yes, we did. Amazing people. But aside from that, first of all, I love the title because it's much better of this program because it's much better than Rabbis and Honda Odysseys drinking Snapple.
I saw what you were drinking, by the way.
No product placement, but please God, after this is all, things calm down, you should keep doing this and go with that title.
Yes. Gerald Meyerhoff is a member of our show. He's a Gabbai par excellence. Says that he wants to see if we're gonna, if in a few weeks we're gonna start rabbis transitioning out of quarantine, getting coffee, or other names. Please, folks, give us your suggestions for what the show should be called after this is done. Joel Kruger points out that we should have a group, Rabbis Without Beards. I believe it's a play on men without hats. Of course, Rabbi Weinstock, you would have to shave, but
well, they told me I don't need an N95 mask, so I've been holding off on the shaving even while in quarantine.
Okay, I don't think I ever saw you without a beard. Have I ever seen you without a beard? No. I've never seen you without a beard.
Well, I remember when Rabbi Weinstock was clean shaven.
That's right.
Do you?
That could
Do you remember the nickname he had back then?
No.
Oh, okay. I believe we are at the end of our time now. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us. This has been great. This has been Rabbi Donald Bixson, Rabbi Ariel Rakovsky, Rabbi Yosef Weinstock. I am not Rabbi Avi Fryer. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Join us next week for the School's Out edition of Rabbis in Quarantine Getting Coffee. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you so much.
And
thank you so much.
I believe I have stopped streaming.
Yeah.
But I'm not 100%